Good morning, BookTube, YouTube. This is Johnny. I've been, I watch BookTube all the time. I have subscribers, and I noticed I haven't made a video. Well, I did make a video you saw of the new booknook, our local library books, our local library used bookstore, the booknook, which I've talked about for years because I volunteered there for over 10 years at different times, and I'm not volunteering anymore because our local library, which is the main library, it has at least 4 floors. It has a whole floor devoted to children, and it has maybe it only has well, you have the main floor when you walk in, then you go below the stairs, which is where the new book nook is, and offices. Maybe it only has 3 floors. I'm not sure. Anyway, the point is that the local library, which is the main library of this county, I can't remember even the title of it now because my mind went blank, but it has gone through a year and a half of being remodeled. They took things out, they expanded things because it's a main library. Millions of people use the library, and so they expanded it and did other things. And they tore out the old book nook and they put in this space in the lower level. You go down there through stairs and an elevator, and there's offices down there, and there is a auditorium, and there is a lounge area, which you saw in the new video of the new book nook. And then there's this big open space with 4 rows of steel shelving that now is called the book nook, and I didn't really care for it. It didn't look like a store, and I don't like being in open spaces. And anyway, so the point is I'm not volunteering anymore. And plus, I did it for a long time, and I'm just probably not into it anymore. But I went there yesterday. That's the point. I went down to the library, which is just about 5 minutes from where we live, to just see what was on the shelving. I'm always curious. I'm always looking for used books, and plus I hadn't left the house since almost for over a week, and I need to drive my car around because if I leave it in the garage, the battery might go dead. And plus I wanted to visit not only the library, the book nook, the new book nook, but on the way home I can stop at Action House Thrift Store, and then I can go to Goodwill Southside Thrift Store and look at used books, and then I can stop by Legacy Thrift Store, which sells used books. I didn't go to Legacy because it was around noon and I was hungry. I wanted to go home for lunch. And I was tired of driving around. I drove the car, so I came home around 12:10 yesterday afternoon. And my wife was home from her errands. Right now she left this morning to get physical therapy and then go to a women's Bible study and then go grocery shopping. So I'm left here by my lonesome, drinking coffee, writing in my diary. I'm on page 967 this morning. It is 10:03 in the morning here in Holland, Michigan. It is November the 20th, 2024. It is 70 degrees inside my cell, my hermit hut, my place of refuge from the storm. So I went to the book nook, talked to one of the volunteers. His name is Bob, and I like Bob. And talked to somebody else. And I looked around. I didn't really see anything that blew me away, but I did see a couple books, which I'll show. That's the point of this video. A used book haul. What did I find yesterday at the Book Nook, the new Book Nook? What did I find at Action House Thrift Store, which is just down the street from us? Action House has a community kitchen. It has a community grocery store. It has a community, they sell clothing, furniture, all kinds of things for people. And they have a soup kitchen here in town at the local seminary, Western Theological Seminary, has meals at noon for people. There also, I do go to Gateway Rescue Mission. Gateway has a facility for women and family, women with children, and they have a facility for men. So, and they help the homeless, the poor. They have job programs, job training. They have all kinds. They also have a restaurant, Gateway, where they train people to be cooks and work in the food industry. So there's all kinds of things here in Holland for people to get involved in or get trained or helped. They have a shelter for women who are being physically abused. They have all kinds of things here in Holland. It's a very kind of Christian community. So anyway, so I'll show you the books I got at the Book Nook. But first I'll show you a new book I got. I bought Neil Stephenson's Polestan, which is the first volume of a trilogy called Volume 1 of Bomb Light. I collect Neil Stephenson. I'm not really into sci-fi or fantasy or things like that, but I collect him. I was going to show you my Neil Stephenson collection, but it's downstairs and it's massive. He wrote huge volumes of over 900 pages, and I'll show those in a future video, but this is the new one. The reason why I bought this is because one of the main characters is a communist, 1933 Bolshevik Revolution, early communism here in America in the 1930s. Things like that kind of interest me. So I've been reading this. I've read about 80 pages of this. So in the mornings, I'm still reading in the mornings for devotion, Light Unapproachable, Divine Incomprehensibility and the Task of Theology by Ronnie Kurtz, and reading the English 17th century English Puritan reprint, The Way of the Spirit in Bringing Souls to Christ by Thomas Allen, who lived from 1608 and died in 1673. This is I've showed you that before. So now to the used books. Well, first thing I'll show you is, like I said, last Tuesday. This is Wednesday. Last week Tuesday, I had an appointment with my psychologist, and when I go home, I drive by Gateway Mission Thrift Store. It's a big, huge facility. It sells furniture, knickknacks, clothing, all kinds of stuff, but they sell books. And so I stopped there and I found two books. One I had already. I had this book. So this is the double, and I put it in my car. The End, Defiance, and Destruction of Hitler's Germany, 1944 to 1945, by Aaron Kershaw. I collect him. He's a historian. Aaron Kershaw is the author of Fateful Choices, Making Friends. I have Making Friends with Hitler downstairs, which won the Elizabeth Longford Prize. He's written 2 biographies on Hitler. So I collect him. Basically, I collect his writings. And then I found out I already had this when I was cataloging in my library thing, Book Mountain. So I put it in the car. Also, I found at Gateway a book I didn't have, but Poems for the Millennium, University of California Book of Modern and Postmodern Poetry, Volume 1, from I can't pronounce it, but this is it. Yeah, a lot of the poems, a lot of the poetry in this anthology, I collect it has Ezra Pound, it has all these moderns and postmodern poets that I collect and I like to read of that time period. And it was in good shape. It wasn't underlined. It wasn't beat up. So I got this. This is edited by Jerome, Rothenberg, and Pierre, Joris. So, yeah, I like reading modern and postmodern poetry. A lot of the poets here I collect, or if I haven't read about them, I look for them now when I go out to use. Like it has Wallace Stevens poetry. As you know, I have a large Wallace Stevens, one of my favorite poets. So I got that. Now, I'll show you the books I got at the Book Nook. First of all, I have a Bob Dylan collection, which I've showed in past videos. I collect his music, his bootlegs, his books on him, and all kinds of things. And I found 2 Bob Dylan books at the Book Nook. Dylan Goes Electric-Newport, Seeger, Dylan, and the Night That Split the Sixties by Elijah Wald. So I got that from my Bob Dylan collection. It's not underlined. It looks like it was a library withdrawal. And then I found another Bob Dylan book at the Book Nook, Bob Dylan Highway 61 Revisited by Colin Irwin. Now, if you don't know, Highway 61 Revisit is my #1 favorite album. I have Bob Dylan's music. I have him on cassette. When we lived down in Houston, Texas, when I was doing my ministerial internship, I didn't have CDs. I bought cassettes. I think I've showed you my cassette collection. I still have it downstairs in a big, huge box, the cassettes. And I didn't buy much music when I started buying music more in cassette when we lived in Texas. But when we moved to Holland about 34 years ago, I started buying CDs. And I have a few cassettes when we first moved to Holland, mostly Christian music, contemporary Christian music. I think I've showed those. But when we lived in Houston, I got into cassettes like the Pixies and Bob Dylan, Van Morrison, Bruce Cockburn, people like that. The Cure, all kinds of music. But Bob Dylan, Highway 61 Revisit has always been my #1 favorite album, especially like a Rolling Stone, Tombstone Blues, Ballad of a Thin Man, Highway 61 Revisited, Desolation Row is one of my favorite songs of all time. Just like a Tom Thumb's Blues. So what this book is, that he goes into the recording of this album, the people, the session musicians, just goes into the history of that album. And so I got that. And then I bought at the Book Nook this art book, Sargent. It's John Singer Sargent, who's a very famous artist who he was born in Florence in 1856 to American parents. Sargent spent a nomadic childhood before going to Paris to study with progressive academic artists. He quickly surpassed his master, and by the 1880s, Sargent had begun the steady climb to fame that ultimately placed him at the center of his society. With a formidable circle of friends and colleagues included Henry James, Claude Monet, James Whistler. As you know, I collect James Whistler also. His biographies, art books, all kinds of things on James Whistler. I just showed you my Monet book. Those are my favorite painters, and so I picked this up. It was for $7. It was a library withdrawal, but I really am into Whistler and John Singer Sargent. There's a very famous painting of his. Yeah, I'm really into John Sargent. He's known for his portraits, for society, the Gilded Age. I did buy last year a biography that came out on John Singer Sargent, The Grand Affair, John Singer Sargent in His World by Paul Fisher. I have other books downstairs on John Singer Sargent, but this is what I picked up at the Book Nook. There's no that painting in the back. It's almost impressionistic. I just really like his portrait paintings. So I picked that up at the Book Nook. Yeah, I had this, I keep this in my study, main study, John Singer Sargent in His World by Paul Fisher. I don't know if there's any paintings in here. Let me see. Oh. Madam X is one of his famous paintings there. I have a book on that painting downstairs, Madam X. So after the Book Nook, I went to Action House, and I found a biography on the President Thomas Jefferson. I collect biographies on certain presidents. One of them, John Adams, John Quincy Adams, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Andrew Jackson, Abraham Lincoln, Ulysses Grant, people like that. But I had another book by him. This guy is B.B. Bernstein. This is a very concise biography on President Thomas Jefferson. It's in perfect condition, Oxford University Press. It was only $1. So I picked that up. And then I picked up this little crime novel by, she is born in Buenos Aires. She's a very famous South American writer. She used crime fiction. This was shortlisted for the 2022 International Booker Prize. Her name is Claudia Pineiro, and the novel is Elena Knows and translated by Frances Riddle. It's a little, it looked, I collect South American writers, especially those who've been nominated for the National Booker Prize. And she's one of the most famous South American writers. It's been translated, so I picked that up. And then I went to Goodwill thrift store and I found these two books, Bomber Command, Myths and Reality of Strategic Bombing Offensive, 1939 to 45 by Max Hastings. I collect the writings of Max Hastings. He deals with the Second World War, but I collect him. And so if I see a Max Hastings books, I buy it. So I bought Bomber Command. I'm not really a fanatic on the Second World War, but I do collect Max Hastings books. So that's why I picked that up. And then I picked up this odd book. It just looked kind of interesting. Alphabet versus the Goddess. The Conflict Between Word and Image by Leonard Shlain. Yeah, it caught my eye. It looked interesting. It kind of beat up. It was only $1. And a lot of people had it in Library Thing. He also wrote Art and Physics, Parallel Visions in Space, Time, and Light. I don't know, it just looked kind of thought-provoking. So I got it at Goodwill. So yesterday I spent around $25 on used books. I have been reading this because since I told you Highway 61 Revisited is one of my favorite all-time #1 albums. I'm really into Bob Dylan. I kind of like his 60s. Some of his most recent albums I like, but I'm really like. So I've been reading this. So that's it about used books. I got a book coming in the mail tomorrow. I did order one book I did not have by Neil Stevenson. I lost it years ago. I loaned it out and I never got it back. And I ordered it as a paperback. It was called Snow Crash. That's I'll show if you want to see my Neil Stevenson collection. I think I showed it years ago, but I picked up his new one. Yeah, I'm not really into sci-fi, but I do collect certain ones like William Gibson I collect. There are other sci-fi writers I do, fantasy, but I'm not really into that. I'm more into literary fiction. I'm more into the Bible. Yeah, I'm more into Christian literature than secular literature, but I do like reading about Bob Dylan, and I do like South American literature, and I like reading about Thomas Jefferson, and I do collect Ian Kershaw. I collected historian. Do like reading modern and postmodern poetry, and I like the paintings of John Singer Sargent. That's why I picked this up. I don't know about any other paintings in here. Let's see, there's another painting of his. So anyway, it's going on 24 minutes. I'll stop. This is a Wednesday, November the 20th in the morning, writing in my diary. And life just keeps continuing going on. The weather here sucks. It's wet. It's gray. We're supposed to get snow and rain this week. So life just continues. So I'll sign off. Thank you for your comments. So this is a used book haul. And yeah, so Highway 61 Revisited by Bob Dylan. That's the background music to this video. So until next time, hope you're all doing well. Thank you for the comments. May the Lord bless. Until next time, bye.